morning to one and all. Respected guest trainer for the day, Dr. G. Balasubramanian, former Director of Academics CBSE, Honorary Board of Trustees, Principal, Vice Principal, Deputy Vice Principal, and dear teachers. As the global coronavirus pandemic opens up an entirely new set of challenges for the education system, we are seeing just how important it is to build a more adaptable and an inclusive approach to learning. We see many opportunities and seeds of hope sprouting as the world takes a moment to rethink education. We are also seeing a positive reaction from teachers, educators, and the wider community. We are indeed privileged to have amongst us a versatile personality, Dr. G. Balasubramanian, former Director of Academics CBSE, to enlighten us on blended learning, a style of education in which students learn via electronic and online media, as well as traditional face-to-face learning, face-to-face teaching. Let us begin this day with the recitation of the Holy Quran by Mrs. Ruxana Naid, Faculty, Department of Commerce, ICSK Senior.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان ألا تطغوا في الميزان وأقيموا الوزن بالقسط ولا تقصروا الميزان والأرض وضعها للأنام فيها فاكهة ونخل ذات الأكمام والحب ذو العصف والريحان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان صدق الله العظيم.
Let us pay respect to our foster country and our motherland. Kindly rise for National Anthem of Kuwait, followed by International Anthem.
وطن الكويت سلمت للمجد وعلى جبينك طالع السعد وطن الكويت سلمت للمجد وعلى جبينك طالع السعد وطن الكويت وطن الكويت وطن الكويت سلمت للمجد يا مبدأ آباء الأولى كتبوا سفر الخلود فنادت الشهود الله أكبر إنهم عرب طلعت كواكب جنة الخلد وطن الكويت سلمت للمجد وعلى جبينك طالع السعد وطن الكويت وطن الكويت وطن الكويت سلمت للمجد जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे हे तव जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Kindly be seated. A small and great welcome will make a merry feast. May I invite the passionate and dedicated Mr. K. Gangadhar Shirsat, Principal ICSK Ketang, to deliver the welcome speech.
Hello, good morning everybody. What a pleasant day for blended learning today. Well, at the outset, I just would like to welcome a great personality, we can say a saint in the education field, Dr. G. Balasubramanian. Sir, this is second opportunity with ICSK, and it is because when we had a first opportunity to have being enlightened from you, then that opportunity actually kept us waiting for the second chance, and today is the day. Today all educators are here, and ICSK fraternity is highly lucky today to have been enlightened on this very, very important subject. Blended learning, actually, as we say, which of course I am not the authority to comment on this subject because it all belongs to you, but at the same time, since we expect all-round development of every child that we educate, so the all-round development can happen only when a blended learning can happen. Only when all sorts of skills, knowledge, and talent will get opportunity for development, then only we can say a blended learning is happening. And in order to bring about all-round development of every child, we need to understand how to acquire this skill, or how to provide this opportunity, or how to practice this blended learning in our school. For that, I think there is no other personality greater than you to speak on this very, very important subject. I would like to appreciate all the people in ICSK who have chosen this opportunity to acquire skills among themselves. Dr. Vinwan, our senior administrator and principal of ICSK Senior, has actually made it happen. So I would like to thank Dr. Vinman. And on this occasion, nonetheless, it cannot happen without the motivation, support, and the guidance from our honorable management. I'm sure that the members of the management will be happy to see that all the skills which are required to develop among the children are acquired through this kind of trainings by the teachers. Starting with our honorable chairman, Mr. Sheikh Abdul Rahman. He is present amidst us today. Thank you so much, sir, and I welcome you. It's all because of your leadership we are able to get these opportunities, and thanks for your motivation. I would also like to welcome and thank other members of the management, our under secretary, Mr. Amir, our joint secretary, Mr. Egnello, our vice chairman, Mr. Vinu Kumar Nair, and our treasurer, Mr. Raju. All these 5 members of the board are always involved in the school activities, and it's because of their sheer support and guidance we are able to conduct this kind of activities and take the ICSK forward in our journey. I also would like to welcome our fellow principals, Mr. Rajesh, principal of Haman branch, and Ms. Shirley, principal of ICSK Junior. I would like to welcome our vice principals and deputy vice principals of all 4 schools. I would like to welcome all HODs, supervisors, and all beloved teachers. I would like to welcome all those who are part of this function, because this is a great opportunity for us when we are going to open for second session very soon. And this knowledge of blended learning, which we'll have received from a great personality like Dr. G. Balasubramanian, this skill will be very afresh when we will be starting our classes now. So this is a great opportunity, and I welcome everybody on this platform. Dr. Balasubramaniam, once again, wholeheartedly, ICSK fraternity would like to welcome you. Kindly, this is a virtual program, so we cannot actually physically meet and shake hands, but please accept our warmth and token of love through these our humble words, and we would like to welcome once again on this platform. I remember, I should not say I remember, I should say I can never forget the training program that you provided in ICSK on happiness curriculum. Really, it was so mesmerizing, and at that time itself we felt that speakers like you should be part of our ICSK training programs. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation and being present today to speak on this very important subject. Once again, I welcome you. I welcome the management members, principals, vice principals, and all staff once again, and would like to wish a happy session ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for the warm welcome. The Indian Community School Kuwait, formerly known as Indian School Kuwait, is the oldest Indian school recognized by the Ministry of Education, Kuwait. This year, we complete 61 years of quality teaching. ICSK Cloud is one of the novel innovations of our school that provide an easy access for parents to all school-related activities. It comprises of features such as attendance, timetable, student corner, communications, evaluations, etc. As soon as the lockdown period started, teachers were given training in the Zoom platform to continue the teaching process. It has been successful so far to maintain a classroom ambience through this application. Now, the school has been successful enough to merge the Zoom platform with ICSK Cloud to continue enhancing not only the academics but also our core curricular activities. The ICSK community is honored to invite our esteemed guest speaker, Dr. G. Balasubramanian, to inaugurate the integration of ICSK Cloud with Zoom.
Good morning, everybody, and it is my pleasure to inaugurate the ICSK Cloud app for the benefit of the teachers. I wish them long years of experience and excellence pursuit of training through ICSK Cloud. I wish you all the best.
Thank you, sir. Now here we have a short inaugural video. That was a wonderful one. We are really honored to be at such an exemplary inauguration. Now, may I take the pleasure of requesting our true great visionary leader, Dr. V. Binamon, Principal and Senior Administrator, ICSK Senior, to introduce our honorable mentor for today, Dr. G. Balasubramanian, former Director of Academics, CBSE.
Good morning to all of you. On this positive day and this precious moment, it is my privilege to introduce such a great personality in front of you, in front of everybody. So he is none other than our chief speaker, Dr. G. Balasubramanian, former academic director of CBSE. Dr. G. Balasubramanian was born at Tirunelveli, Tamil Nadu. And he had his initial schooling at Madurai and graduated in chemistry from Presidency College, Chennai. He obtained his post-graduation in analytical and inorganic chemistry from Madras University, post-graduation in Hindi from Sri Venkateshwara University, and post-graduation in education from Annamalai University as well. He has also obtained a diploma in German from University of Madras, certificate in project technology from Trent College of Education, Nottingham, United Kingdom, and certificate course in computer education from Leeds University, United Kingdom. He's also a certified master trainer for skills development, and he has got a certificate also from Glasgow, United Kingdom. Starting his career as a postgraduate teacher in chemistry in a public school, and he took over as a principal of Hindu Senior Secondary School, Chennai. He joined the Central Board of Secondary Education as Joint Secretary in 1984, and he has worked in several capacities. And he had been the chairman of the Curriculum Reforms Committee and Examination Reforms Committee in the government of Tamil Nadu as well. And he worked as Academy Director, CBSE, the main post he were in, Academy Director, CBSE, Chief Vigilance Officer of Central Board of Secondary Education, CBSE, Chairman, Technical Committee, National Accreditation Board of Educational Training, Quality Council of India, and many more. Okay, before which I would like to point out one more thing also, that he has authored several books for teachers, academicians, educational administrators as well. He has published several short stories, poem, and article also in different magazines and newspapers. So such a great personality that we have today to speak about the blended learning. And dear teachers, this is the need of the hour as well, because as per the new education policy, it's very specifically mentioned about this need. Okay, so with a great pride, let me invite the great mentor, Dr. G. Balasubramanian, former Academy Director of CBSE, to give a beautiful training program for us. Sir, please.
Thank you, Dr. Birimoon, and it is indeed a great pleasure to be with all of you. I recall fondly my loving visit to your community to talk on the happiness curriculum, and whether I made you happy or not, I returned as a very happy person after interacting with the teachers all over there. So it's indeed a great pleasure to be with all of you. So let me straight away get into my program. And the topic is a very important and hard topic of the day, that world over we talk about, blended learning at this point of time, right? So, almost every day, some school or the other is looking forward to a training program on blended learning. And, usually this term probably is conceived as a product of the 21st century, along with the technology. So let us try to understand various parameters of blended learning, whether it is a discovery of the 21st century, whether it is a gift of technology, or whether it's something which we already had and whether we missed the bus somewhere there. But before I walk into you, all of you, as it was informed, I hope all of you are doing very well, because we are passing through very, very difficult times across the world today with the pandemic, haunting all of us. People say it's a time of crisis, right? But I had a point of difference. I always used to say that this is not a time of crisis, it's a time of chaos, because there is a difference between the crisis and chaos. Crisis is something where you have the nucleus easily located, and you can treat the cause of the crisis and try to find some kind of a measure to solve the problem. But something like, when you differentiate between a cyclone and a tsunami, the cyclone is an eye, and you can find out and track what's happening around. But when it comes to tsunami, you really don't know how and where it's going to cause its impact. And to me, this particular pandemic started in a very small manner. For people who have done mathematics at a higher level, they will know there is a theory called the theory of chaos. And the theory of chaos says in a very beautiful manner that when butterfly flaps its wings in China, it sends a tornado in Chicago. That's a kind of statement. So exactly that what happened, the virus started somewhere and then it spread across the world. And then you find what is started as a health crisis, it became a social crisis, it became an economic crisis, it became a cultural crisis, and then it also impacted education. And therefore you have, the crisis moving like an octopus all around, haunting different fields. And we in education are no exception to that. But then what happened? We teachers have always been brave. Whenever there was a challenge, whenever there was a problem, we always found an alternative. And I think that has been the greatest gift of the humanity. And therefore, we immediately moved towards a technological platform wherein we could deliver our education. Therefore, friends, we are now moving through the times of crisis, and I'm sure it's going to be over sooner than expected, and we all will be back home, back to our positions.
Hello.
Hello?
Hello, sir. It's audible now.
Yeah, I'm audible. There was a problem in current fluctuation. Sorry. About 150 days before when the lockdown was introduced, I thought as a person who has been traveling nearly about 25 days a month, how is it going to be possible for me to stay at home? But then looking back, you find that right now, I am nearly 150 days, at home. Right? I haven't moved out of my house for the last 150 days. So what was impossible has become possible. That's a very interesting aspect of a human nature, that initially, whenever we have a challenge, we consider that it's impossible. How are we going to move that? And that's exactly what happened with the scenario. We thought that due to lockdown, we'll not be able to handle our classrooms. So, it is said that every man is an impossibility before he is born, right? That's what Emerson said. And Muhammad Ali said, impossible is not a fact, but it's only an opinion. Therefore, impossibility becomes a possibility unless when you start doing it. And that's exactly happened when we switched on to the so-called blended learning. When we went to the digital learning, We thought we had problems initially, but we were able to cope with the problems sooner there. And therefore, friends, the question what I am trying to say is impossibility is a word only in the dictionary of fools. And therefore, we as teachers, we as innovators, we are as people who see always an opportunity in a climate of darkness, we have been able to somehow manage the things. But are we doing the right thing? Is the kind of the education that we are doing on a digital mode, is it really a blended learning? And is blended learning, or what do you call the digital learning, is a product of pandemic, and once the pandemic is gone, will we go back to our natural classrooms, and therefore will we forget the digital learning? These are the questions that haunt our mind, friends, together. But what has happened with this crisis that is coming through, three important challenges came to all of us. One is the anxiety. What was the anxiety? In the month of March, when all these things came, you were all preparing the students for the examinations of the board, right? And then your children could not take the examination of the board. You are planning to start your new calendar year, and probably everything was set in right, and nothing would happen, right? So not only you, everybody in the system was haunted by an anxiety, right? And then you had an issue of time management. Oh, the time is moving around. How are we going to conduct the exam? How are we going to conduct the results? How are you going to start the new year? So all these issues came through, and then you have had an issue of time management. The third factor, which is managing the mass behavior. You have a group of parents, a number of parents with a lot of anticipation, number of parents with a lot of expectations, and suddenly something goes wrong. And you will, as a teacher, as a head of an institution, you have to handle a group of people, not 1, 2, 3, but you have to handle a group of people, and therefore you had a challenge all the three dimensions over here, right? And remember one thing, we become creative only when we are challenged. That's the beauty of the human brain. If you start looking at the nuances of the brain sciences, you will find the brain is designed only for a challenge. So whenever there is a challenge, the brain starts looking at an alternative, and therefore in the midst of the chaos is always a creativity. I could easily see across the country, I think I should have addressed more than 25,000 teachers in the last 2 to 3 months, and I could see teachers have become extremely creative in these 2-3 months. Very interestingly, I used to say, it's a kind of a jugaad culture, right? Whatever is available to them, they make it together to make things work, and then see that the job is done, see that the message is delivered. And therefore, creativity is a part of the chaos, and we have been able to adapt to this change quite easily with a sense of comfort. The fear that we had is gone. The problem with the fear is more killing than the fear itself, right? So our own self-pity, whether we will be able to do blended learning, whether we'll be able to adapt to technology, that was more haunting than the technology itself, right? So in this background, when we look at it, people are today talking about what is called new normal. Everybody says the schools will have a new normal. Your pedagogy will have a new normal. Your curriculum will have a new normal. And so when somebody asked me a question sir, what do you think is a new normal? I said, what do you mean by a new normal, right? Because, when did humans came in terms with new normal? As a matter of fact, if you look at this picture, you will find when fire was discovered for the first time, people did not know what the fire was. They didn't know how to use it, right? That was a new normal. They came into terms with that. When the wheel was discovered, that was a new normal. They didn't know how to use it, and then they occupied. Then the printing press came, that was a new normal. When the computers came, it was a new normal. When you had a smart board in your class, that was a new normal. When you have a mobile WhatsApp university today, that's a new normal. In other words, every morning there is a new normal. Every new invention is a new normal. So don't ever press your panic button that something is going to be new, right? There is a very interesting proverb. What is the new normal? Nothing has changed, but everything is new, right? Your curriculum has not changed, your pedagogy has not changed, but the way you deliver the curriculum will be different. The way you deliver your pedagogy will be different. Assessment will be the same, but the way you assess that thing will be different. Now, with the new normal, you will find your school size will change, your school timetable will change, your school timings will change, but then the school will go on. So what's interesting going to happen, one of the major paradigm shift that's going to happen today is that our concept of school is going to change. What is that? By school, we thought school is an infrastructure. We talked of school as a building. We talked of school as a laboratory or something, all that company together. Now, school is going to become a concept, right? Like London School of Economics, Harvard School of Business, right? A school is going to stand for a concept. The goodness of a school, the quality of a school, the competency of a school is not going to be designed by its infrastructure, not going to be defined by its air-conditioned rooms, right? Or not by the results, but by what you are going to deliver to the children. What is going to be the quality of your, quality of empowerment of your children? That's going to be your new normal. So friends, you are now expected to move from an old way to a new way. Now people say, sir, there is a change. I wouldn't call it a change. This is a transformation. There's a difference between a change and a transformation. Change is always ushered in from the top down. Sometimes it happens from the bottom level. Change is always a surface activity, but transformation is an organic activity. Everybody in the system, becomes a part of a transformation. Transformation doesn't happen unless otherwise every participant in the system becomes a part of it, right? So remember one thing, that we are now having, what are the features of this new normal? The new normal is that the universe of learning is becoming nebulous. What do you mean by nebula? Just now we inaugurated a cloud. Nebula is just a cloud, right? So all that what we are putting is that information will be put across in the cloud, and then the people will disseminate the information from the cloud. That's the future. Therefore, what you are going to teach, how you are going to teach, there will be not much of clarity on that, and therefore you will really find that the whole structure of schooling will become very nebulous. The variables which you use for teaching will change. The methods of pedagogy, for example, you never thought your children would be using a laptop or a WhatsApp for learning, but today when you talk about the WhatsApp University, that's an issue. So you will also have concerns of safety and security in the school, and also you'll find that the gap between what the professional competency of the teacher, what they had and what they are expected to have will also change. So there's also a social change happening around, a life skill change happening around, and therefore you will find the schools will have to adopt itself. What is the problem? That for 20 years before, that, I remember to have said it in the last meeting also, that when I went to a school, 80% of my learning was from the school and 20% of learning was from outside. Today, 20% of learning is from the school and 80% of learning is from outside. My teachers struggled to take the content from the classroom to real-time world outside. But now my teachers are facing the problem of bringing the real-time world into the classroom and linking together. That is what we call a reverse osmosis in education. And that's a new challenge my teachers are going to been focusing on teaching, right? We are not on learning. Teaching is that what we thought was good enough for children, what we thought was necessary for children was being delivered. Now the focus is shifting, and exactly two things are challenging the teachers in schools today. One is the pandemic. We are now also having with a new national education policy from the government of India, which is coming with new dimensions coming through. So you have a two-pronged attack over there. And when I go through the national policy of education, and schools like you are affiliated with the CBSE or other boards over there, immaterial of the board that you are attached with, a very fundamental paradigm shift is happening across the world. the paradigm shift is moving from learning to learnability, right? All that what we children, now we are focusing on learnability of the children. Children are able to capable of learning more and more and more, and therefore children want to learn, wish to learn, and want to extend their learning in spite of you, in spite of the school. And therefore the focus is shifting on what my child is capable of learning rather than what my child is learning. We have tested the children on learning, we have not tested the children on their learnability, because they learn several things which you don't teach, right? And therefore the paradigm shift is on learnability. This, if you keep in mind very well, you will understand why blended learning is very important, because blended learning is going to facilitate, empower the learnability of the child rather than our intents of learning, which is a. Now, for years we have come with a number of policies on learning, right from Skinner to everybody you name around, you have the policy. And you started with behaviorism, you went to cognitivism, you went to constructivism, you moved from individual constructivism to social constructivism, then we came to connectivism. So we have defined our education by several ways, like this blind man trying to identify what the elephant is all about. But remember one thing, learning is much more than that. Learning is much bigger than that. Learning is a highly individualized process. If you want to understand learning, you need to understand what are the latest researches in the neurocognitive sciences. And as Confucius would say, learning without thinking is useless, thinking without learning is dangerous. And now we have a problem. Now we have learning and thinking going like the two rails of a track. And therefore we have our education is not facilitating the merging of these two, and blended learning is going to do the job, right? So friends, the next couple of minutes, what I'm going to talk to you, the broad outline. As a teacher, I've been essentially a teacher, so I talk about a lesson plan for the class. And today my learning objectives for you would be, what is learning and how does it happen? How does brain respond to the process of learning? Is blended learning new, or how old is it? And why do we need blended learning? The myth of online learning and why we should move from online learning to blended learning. What is the right pedagogy for blended learning, and how do we organize the blended learning? These are all the parameters which I'm going to present in the next couple of minutes. Okay, given that, now, when did blended learning start, right? Now, people say, sir, 2010, right? With 3G, 4G, what is that happening around? But if you start really introspecting it, you will find that blended learning was an age-old phenomenon, right? A farmer, when you till the soil, he needed to know that what is the quality of the soil, what kind of a seed could be put across, what is the right season to sow, right? How much time I should till the soil, and then how much time it takes to grow, what is the monsoon time to do across, right? And then what should be, how do I control the pest? So a number of things he had to learn. It is not that he just puts his anchor and then goes on tilling the soil. 101 things he has to know, right from the monsoon to the soil quality to the quality of seeds, everything. What was it? It was absolutely blended learning. And you take a potter, what all he had to do about the physics of it. You take about a goldsmith, when you made an ornament, he must know what is the kind of the metal, what kind of combination he can adopt, how much of heat he has to do. So remember one thing beautifully, that learning is always blended. We have only classified it as what you call linear learning, this learning. Learning is naturally blended process. Remember, learning is learning happens only because of integration of sensory inputs. Learning doesn't happen because just to see. No, right? The seeing has got to be emotionally connected. Touching has got to be emotionally connected. So all the senses work together to give you a meaning for a word, to be a meaning for what you see. So even in our human organization of knowledge perception, there is a blending. So learning is always blended, and therefore you see the learning process right from younger age to the old age. We don't adopt the same method of learning over there. We go on blending the resources of our learning over a period of time. So when you talk about blended learning, it is not putting many things together. I got a laptop, I got something else, do that. I provide an online delivery. No, that's not blended learning. Blended learning in content, blending of content, blending of pedagogy, blending of resources, right? And the blending of time, blending of space, all that put together gives you a holistic view of the blended learning, right? So I want to break the myth that the blended learning is what you call a gift of the 21st century. As a matter of fact, when you talk about the early Gurukula systems, the teachers, what they used to do, whether it's in the Western system or the Indian system, they used to send their disciples to the forest to cut the wood. They must know what wood should be cut, what fruits must be collected. They went to the village to collect the grains. So social intelligence, so environmental intelligence, social intelligence, so many things were blended in the part of learning. Unfortunately, over the last couple of decades, we have restricted learning. We have restrained learning to a textual content. We have restrained learning to what you call examination-oriented process. Therefore, friends, blended learning is a great gifted opportunity. We must thank our stars that one of the byproducts of this pandemic, one of the outputs of the National Policy of Education is to encourage blended learning. Probably this is opening one of the finest gateways for the school infrastructures to reinvent themselves on what they should be doing, right? So remember one thing, learning by itself is a stimuli response mechanism. I don't want to delve on that. Therefore, every response is an emotional response. It is a kinesthetic response. It is a visual response. So in every response, there is a sensory integration. And therefore, every stimuli gets a blended response from the human system, right? And this is exactly what we need to know, that no learning bereft of emotions is the learning. I'll give an example to you. The question is that when we learn, so-called learn, I would call, when we get to know something, right, it is always on a surface level. It is on the evaporative memory, short-term memory, volatile memory. But when it's blended with emotion, it goes to a long-term memory. That's why pedagogues say that you need emotionally competent stimuli. A good teacher, when he provides or she provides an emotionally competent stimuli, the knowledge, the information goes to long-term memory and not short-term memory. That's why we remember many teachers who have been very passionate, who have been very emotional. That is the direction that which we have been moving. So remember, learning is largely blended. It is a combo of knowledge, emotional skills, right? For example, when you learned about taxonomy of education, what did you talk? Cognitive domain, affective domain, and psychomotor domain, right? Cognitive domain dealt with knowledge, affective domain dealt with emotions, and psychomotor domain dealt with skills. So learning is a blended phenomena of all the three, right? Now, basically, blended learning should lead to what is called excellent brain network. Learning is nothing but the brain network, right? I'll give an example to you. Maybe about half an hour before, when you came and sat down in the webinar, your brain network was different. Right now, your brain network is different because every movement of the body, every piece of information that comes to you changes the brain network, right? Therefore, the learning is always blended. If a teacher is going to teach some geography today and next week, same day she is teaching geography, the brain network of the child will be different next week rather than this week because so many inputs have gone and got blended with that. So friends, before I walk into the nuances of blended learning, let's clarify that learning basically is not linear, it's not structured, it is not predictable, it cannot be instructed, and the brain always does a multi-process. That's why when you are teaching something in the class, you think the child is listening, right? Just like, for example, I am talking to you now. I really do not know how many people would be listening, right? They may all be sitting before the laptops, but are they emotionally connected? Are they thinking something else? So all these things are quite natural. And that's why we call brain as a multi-process happening around at this point of time. So, fortunately and unfortunately, Now, in the current scenario, learning is becoming multipolar, because when we were young, probably the sources of information were very much limited. But today, the sources of information are plenty, right? The child is able to gather information by 100 different resources to empower himself. He may or may not need a teacher, right? So, but the teacher has a great role to play in order to anchor learning, facilitate learning, empower learning, contextualize learning, and see that the process is an enjoyable process. So I'm not ruling out the possibility of the teacher or negating it. But remember, with or without the teacher, with an informal learning also takes place, and therefore learning is multipolar at this point of time. So the question is, does brain support blended learning? That's a question that we have, right? Remember, the brain says use me or lose me. That's a very simple thing, right? So the brain wants to continuously engage itself. So any teacher who believes my child cannot understand this, it is difficult for the child, I'm sorry, that's only your perception. It's only a perception. As a matter of fact, children have got a great competency of problem solving than you and me, right? Because they are living in a different world. They are products of the different world. Therefore, the children should be given the opportunity to explore, learn, right? The brain is capable of more ideas than the number of atoms in the universe. That's the beauty of the brain, right? And also, remember, throughout our lives, we use just a fraction of our brain thinking ability. We could try, without any difficulty, learn 40 languages, memorize a set of encyclopedias from A to Z, and complete the required colleges. That's the capacity of the brain. And therefore, do you think a textbook, a classroom delivery is sufficient enough to feed the brain? Not at all. You think so, but the child opens up his learning to a wide variety of things. That is the beauty of the brain. And friends, remember one thing, that during current times, we are moved into entirely a different phase of knowledge management. All right. When I was a child, we had the focus on knowledge assimilation. Now, the purpose of a school, whether it is LKG or to class 12, it is not knowledge assimilation. It is not knowledge management. We are now going to what you call knowledge creation. Now, the focus of present day is that the schools have to facilitate children to create new knowledge. Sir, which class? LKG, right? The children are capable of creating new knowledge right from LKG. How do we know it's a right or wrong? That's a whole problem, because we always create that this is right, that is wrong, right? You will see most scientific discoveries in the world have all been first said it is not possible, it is not correct. Therefore, the first thing that we need to move is that we need to move from our linear thinking of this is right, that is wrong, but facilitate the child to open up knowledge. We talk about experiential learning. The CBSE has sent a circular to all of you. Now, what is experience? How will you have experience if you are going to design what is right, what is wrong? Therefore, remember, if a child goes to a class 11 and then does an experiment using a Wheatstone bridge or something else, the ammeter is not working, the galvanometer is not working, but the teacher says, I want the right answer, that the child is able to say, sir, this is the wrong answer, because your ammeter, this problem is there, galvanometer, this problem is there, and therefore that is the real knowledge. So remember, a creation of knowledge, identification of problems is more important. The whole dynamics of your national policy of education is to facilitate children to create new knowledge, not only in India, world over. The 21st century learning, especially with digital platform, they say our job is not to create the knowledge. I said a very interesting example to you. When I was a teacher, one day my principal called me to discuss about the poor performance of a student, and the parent was sitting over there. As a young fellow, without knowing much, I made a very proverbial statement. I said, sir, what can I do? I can take the horse to the pond, but I cannot make it drink, right? Now, when I read the statement of brain psychology who say, my dear teacher, your job is not to take the horse to the pond to drink water, but your job is to create a thirst in the horse so that it automatically goes to drink the water in the pond, right? Then I find that blended learning is an opportunity, creation. So remember, before I give you the nuances of blended learning, learning largely happens by three methods in the brain. There are about 8-9 methods, but three are very predominant. One is called semantic coding, the other is called the phonic coding, and the third is called the structural coding. Right? If my teachers are able to understand at least these three basics are there, they will know why we need the blended learning. For example, when I tell a child the sky is, immediately says blue. He doesn't even know correlate, because though in terms of semantics, in terms of verbal construction, in terms of communication method, many things are when I say the dog's tail, immediately the child says it cannot be straightened. Right? These are certain understandings which have been built into the brain of the child, right? Probably even without his learning. So we call it semantic encoding. The other is called the phonic encoding, right? When you say the cat says, immediately the child will say mew. Because a number of things we come because we are able to relate to a phonic representation. Therefore, that the visual, semantic coding is one way with which you learn. The phonic coding is another way which you learn. The third is called a structural coding. A biology teacher, when you talk about DNA, immediately the DNA structure appears in your mind. When you say the square, immediately the picture comes in. So these are three important essential terms of coding. Interestingly, when you talk about the national policy, even CBSE has come with coding as a very important aspect of class 6 onwards. What is coding? Coding is nothing but a logical representation of facts and figures, and thereby, empowering the logical mind to act more aggressively to facilitate design thinking. And that's a very important thing. Today we talk about a lot of design thinking. Design thinking, when it's will be possible, when you give the freedom to the child to think. Now, when you go on teaching and say, this is all they're learning about, in blended learning, it's going to facilitate design thinking. Every child will be a design thinker. Every child will come with different perceptions to that, because learning is all about perceptions. So friends, remember that your blended learning is going to encourage all these three types of coding, and the supremacy of a teacher, the authority of a teacher is not going to dominate, curb, or restrain the quality and the quantity of learning of the teacher. So, sir, we have been using textbooks over there. Textbooks have been only triggers. Textbooks never taught, right? Now, neither the textbook nor the teachers were teaching. They were only acting as triggers, and therefore they were only facilitating the mechanism of learning, ladies and gentlemen. And therefore, we need a stress-free environment for learning, and you will find blended learning is a fantastic platform, right? So, why blended learning? I'm going to give you 10 reasons to support a blended learning before I come to the resources on that. One, blended learning empowers self-learning. I think that's a very important dimension when I talk about the learnability of the child. Right, today, your child is capable of learning much more than what you teach, right? And you cannot stop, you should not stop. You should facilitate. And the national policy of education also supports that. Extended learning, experiential learning, whatnot. So blended learning is a strong supporter of self-learning. With blended learning, the onus and the responsibility of learning is transferred from the teacher to the learner. But remember one thing, teacher cannot wash off the hands. At some point of time, when you put the taxonomical representation, after the bottom two levels, the top levels are leading to co-construction of knowledge. The teacher and child will construct knowledge together. That's the beauty of the blended learning together. So I will come to that later. But remember one thing, one point is why blended learning empowers self-learning. It facilitates a choice of the learning style, right? Where, why? Because the role of a teacher is to facilitate a variety of learning inputs. Just like what I say, when I go to a 5-star hotel for a lunch, I see a buffet and I have got about 130 items. I can't learn all the 130, but this is what I want to choose. So I choose one salad. I choose one something else, right? So I have that choice. Therefore, in blended learning, when you provide a different modes of learning, the child will say, I will go through this mode, learn. I will see a documentary and learn. The other child will say, no, I want to listen to the teacher and learn. The other child will say that I want to go for a pre-recorded lesson and learn. Another child will say, I will read the book and learn, but I want some support of visuals, right? So you find that there are at least 20 minimal representations of learning, inputs of learning. And in blended learning, teachers are expected to provide all these kinds of resources over there. Next is stress-free learning, because the child is going to learn at his own way. The authority of a teacher, the fear of a teacher, right, is minimized. I don't say it's eliminated, minimized in the blended learning process, right? It is anytime, anywhere learning. The child may be laying in a sofa and learn. The child may be sitting in a garden and learning, right? So long he has got the instrument on his hand. For example, some of you might be seeing this lecture on your mobile. Somebody may be sitting in a laptop and doing it. So everybody has an option to learn. And probably somebody is attending the kitchen and learning. I have seen teachers who are teaching children on digital mode by doing their job in kitchen also. These kinds of complaints have also come through. So the question, what I'm trying to say is, it's basically anytime, anywhere learning. It relieves a load of learning. It's a very important dimension. When you talk of load, there are 4 types of load, which I always say. One is called the bag load, because children bring in all the books to the classroom a number of times, which has been advocated long from the Yashpal committee onwards. And then the other is the curriculum load. What is the curriculum load? The CBSE wants you to teach from class 1, population education, value education, ethics education, name any education that will start in class 1. Now, I'm not talking only about CBSE, but all the boards of education together over there. So the question is, curriculum load is also very high for the children. Third is the transaction load. The teacher wants to teach whatever he knows or she knows, rather than what child is expected to know or capable of knowing, right? Because the teacher finds his ego or her ego or authority being pleased by this, and therefore you got a transaction load. So the 3 loads: bag load, curriculum load, transaction load. And the 4th load is called the psychological load, the pressure of performance, parental pressure, peer pressure, social pressure, school pressure, all that put together, psychology. But given the blended learning, all these kinds of loads are absolutely diffused, absolutely diffused. Please note that. Therefore, that's very good for that. Then it helps multipolar learning. That's why you can learn through a technology, without a technology. You can learn through gamification. You can through peer interaction. So multipolar learning is facilitated. It helps the learner to pace his learning. I will go at this speed, at my own speed. It is not in a classroom where there is competitive learning. So pacing of learning, the speed and quality of learning can be moderated by the teacher or by the student in his blended learning. That it encourages co-construction of knowledge. Now, in blended learning, right, students can sit together and share their learning. I've seen a number of cases abroad that co-construction of knowledge. For example, when you say that you have got 4 schools or 5 schools together, why not children from different schools put together and do a project? Why the same school students together? So co-construction of knowledge is possible, not only within the school, but across the schools, across the state, and therefore between the teacher and the child, between the teacher, parent, and the child. So we talk today about social construction of knowledge. That's exactly your Wikipedia. That's all the kind of social media that's coming is only co-construction of knowledge, and blended learning is going to facilitate co-construction of knowledge. Then it's highly inclusive, right? You can have all kinds of things put together in blended learning together, and that's why your new policy also has taken out co-scholastic and scholastic, academic and vocational, everything coming through in under sing universe of knowledge. That's a very important thing. So henceforth, blended learning, because learning is going to be highly interdisciplinary, highly multidisciplinary, you will find blended learning is the one and the only way to promote interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary transaction of knowledge. So it's becoming highly inclusive. Last but not the least, it offers a spectrum of assessments. If you look at the national policy also, they say that 360-degree assessment of the students. Well, forget about 363, but at least 3 important phases of assessment: self-assessment, peer assessment, and the teacher-led assessment. And I think all these 3 modes of assessment will be facilitated by the blended learning, because the child may come to you, ma'am, I have learned this also which you did not teach. Why not test the child what he has learned rather than what you have taught? And that is another feature further on the cap of the child. Therefore, friends, remember, self-learning can also, self-assessment is also one of the paradigms. Peer assessment and the teacher-led assessment. Blended learning is facilitating all the three. So when we come to the so-called blended learning today, we think that what we deliver through the technology platform is blended learning, but I'm going to deny that, because digital learning is one facet of blended learning. It is not all the blended learning. Please remember, digital mode is a tool that we use. Maybe some inputs of blended learning we can integrate with the laptop or with the computer. But remember, in those days when we talk about farming, when we talk about pottery, whatnot, when blended learning was happening, you didn't have a technology. You understand? So the question, what I'm trying to say is that we should not let the resources interfere with the concept. The concept of blended learning is superior to the kind of resources that we are using. So digital learning is a very powerful aspect of blended learning, but but digital learning is not all blended learning, right? That's a very important, because there's a myth across the country when you say, sir, I'm doing blended learning. What are you doing? That. Now, in digital mode, you've got two modes of doing, a synchronous model and asynchronous model, where the synchronous model, it's again not new. Remember, when you talk about digital mode or electronic mode, I go back to my own days in 1974, when the first, Doordarshan channel on education television came, right? I had the opportunity of taking chemistry classes for 1 year on the television. That was being telecast live across the state. I'm talking about 1974, right? So that was one different model, right, was there. So you find that we moved from a tele model to different other generations of technology. And today we have come to what do you call a more facilitative mode of technology. Therefore, synchronous model existed even in 74, but the tools we used for them were different. Okay, it was not data based, but it was a communication based model. But the asynchronous model, where the teacher and the child need not be always in communication. The child may send his queries subsequently to through WhatsApp or through maybe through email or something. Now they don't discuss directly, but flipped classroom also becomes a model of asynchronous. I will tell you a little later on that. But remember one thing: what is the greatest challenge in the synchronous model? Today, what teachers, I'm not blaming any teachers over there. I'm talking the universal model, what's happening, and trying to deliver digital mode, right? If it is a 1 hour classroom or 45 minutes classroom, 95% of the time the teacher's face is seen on the screen, just like what you are seeing me right now. Maybe that you have some, video, what do you call, PPTs put across, some visuals put across. But in a good asynchronous model, the teacher should show the face only for 25 to 30% of the time. The rest of the time should be to, take a child to an experimentation, visit, a tour, for example, right? When I was a chemistry teacher, I had to teach about petrochemicals. I can't take children to a petrochemical factory for safety reasons. Today, right while teaching, I can take a tour of my children to a model, because everything is available in a video mode, right? If you want to take your children in the period of French Revolution, when you talk about, and you want to take the children to a Louvre Museum, you can take a tour of Louvre Museum right now. You want to take them to Niagara, you can just see how much of water is flowing in Niagara at this point of time. You want to see a volcano, you can say how much of heat is being produced, how much of fire lava is coming out at this point of time, measured, digital. Therefore, your teacher has got a wonderful opportunity of integrating differentiated knowledge on the screen. And therefore, on a digital mode, when the teacher dominates the screen for 95% of their time, well, friends, to start with, like a baby walk, this is okay. We accept it. But we must move beyond that. In a good digital mode, I think that's a very important dimension. With digital mode, we have got three more models of thing. One we call the flipped classroom, the other is we call the blended model, and the third is the heuristic model. I just want to throw some light on flipped and heuristic models. That you understand. Many of you may be using a flipped classroom at this point of time, but what's the problem with the flipped classroom is that we send content of knowledge to the child to read at home, and then the child comes back to the class and we start discussing and debating about it. But then what should happen? We say that, what the homework done by the child is now in the class, and the classwork is done by the home. No, sorry, it's not true. Yeah, in a flipped classroom, the teacher should have a quiz, teacher could have a brainstorming, teacher could have a seminar, teacher could have a problem solving, teacher could have done a project. 100 things can be done. It is not necessary you must do only one thing at a point of time. You have got 30 children in the class, you can put 5 of them in each group and operate 6 different models in the same class. And if that has to happen, the quality of your content that you deliver to the child should be thought-provoking. If you are going to copy from what is given in the book, or if you are going to copy from what is given in the in your e-content and deliver it and read back and see, no. Your content their preparation for a flipped classroom and blended classroom is very, very serious business. Remember, your lesson plan, what you do for your normal class, is not good enough for an online class or a digital or flipped class, right? That therefore, I recommend almost in all meetings that if you want to adopt blended learning, you must have a think tank at each of your school, both at the macro level and at the micro level. What is the macro level? The teachers or the academicians should sit and say, what is my concept of a blended model? What should go into the blended model? What are the resources that I have available? Yeah, I can't have all the 20 resources, but these are the limitations of the resources. How do I blend it, right? Blending means that how do I maximize these resources to, construct learning? That's all that blend, and that the concept you develop, and then you educate your teachers. So for each topic, the teachers would do their own. For example, if I'm an English teacher and I'm teaching daffodils, what would I do? I'll just go to the website and collect pictures of the lakeland where Wordsworth lived. So I got a beautiful picture of the lakeland, and I see the daffodils dancing over there. And when I teach, I see at the back the daffodils dancing over there, and the entire experience is entirely different. You understand? So the question basically is, your experiential learning doesn't mean it's only hands-on. Experiences are of 3 dimensions: cognitive experience, right, which is intellectual; emotional experience, which is able to relate; hands-on experience. So when you talk of an experiential learning, don't ever limit it to a hands-on experience, right? Experiential learning is a broad base. So blended learning will give you a variety of opportunities for dealing with integration, cognitive level, affective level, as well as at the skill on level over there. And rightly so, when the National Policy of Education talks about integrating vocational education from class 6, people say 10 days of bagless classes. It's a fantastic thing. The child will go to a nearby, maybe whatever it is, a carpenter or a potter, maybe if it is quiet, could be some other local, small-time manufacturer. They go and see what's happening, right? In other words, exposure to, that creates not only concepts of productivity, it creates social intelligence, it tries to understand what's happening in the outside world. And therefore, I think, it's a right thing to take the children off the school for some time on that. So that's again a kind of flipping between the school and the outside world. That's a flipping, right? The heuristic model is an entirely different model. You must have heard about Socrates and Plato. Socrates and Plato had a unique way of dealing with their disciples. They used to ask a question to the master used to ask a question to the disciple, and the disciple came with a different question, right? He questioned back the master. Master came with the third question. So they constructed knowledge by putting questions together, right? So very interestingly, that was an investigative model. That was a research model. Therefore, why our children are not doing very well in research and investigation is because we don't let them to do the questions. So a heuristic classroom encourages questions. I remember when I was a chemistry teacher, I was given a beautiful chance of yeah, micro classroom. What is that? I have to take one concept for 30 minutes, right? And but the topic that was given to you me was the manufacture of ammonia by Haber's process, right? And the only thing is, I had 10 students before me. I will not make any statement. I will only ask questions. For the question, the children will give a reply, and from the reply, I ask a question. I build up a total concept of the Haber's process. I'm talking about 25 years before that. Sorry, 35 years before over there. So questioning is you don't ever expect the child to get the right answer. Let them give the wrong answer. Analyze why the wrong answer, and then investigate. That is all the learning about, friends. So remember, flipped classroom and blended heuristic classroom is a very important model. What does the flipped classroom do? Flipped classroom encourages activity, encourages participation, encourages teamwork, and enhances self-confidence and thinking skills of the children. So these are the gifts of the thing. But what is the challenge, as I told the teacher? Now, content preparation. I'm repeatedly saying that, friends, the greatest job for the teachers for the next 1 or 2 years is going to be on content preparation. If anyone is going to think that they will have the blended learning model tomorrow morning because I have taken a lecture and you will have a magic wand, you will transfer, sorry, you are wrong. It will take 2 years minimum. You will have to take 2 years minimum to do that, because it is a process. You have to go for a change in the mindset. So what is that learning by the package should be? It should be gravitating. That's a very important thing. In a digital classroom, the first 30 seconds of a teacher to gravitate the children to attention is very, very important. So gravitating, content rich, you don't have to be narrative, but spotlights, so that the children can focus on spotlights and start thinking. And concepts should be provocative rather than explanatory, and so that thoughtful, analytical, and researching. These are the adjectives that you use for really preparing a flipped classroom model over there. So remember one thing, right? The strategies for flipped classroom I already said: peer discussion, teacher-led discussion, brainstorming, quizzing. Quizzing is a very, very important aspect. The recent policy of National Policy of Education has also said that quizzing should be a part of the school culture, because it makes the children alert, agile, responsive, and its ability to recall the information quickly. So don't wait for a quiz moment annually, but wait for every classroom to become a quizzing center. So quizzing, problem solving. So you don't have to go for a Harvard problem solving. There could be a very simple local problem solving on that. It's a differentiated model of thinking. So project designing, enabling further reading is all that you need. So in all that you do, what is the role of my teacher? Teacher should not say, okay, I've given my projects to you, you do it. Sorry, no. Engaging, joining, participating, right? And uniting with them and involving with them. I think, in other words, the teacher is a co-learner. The teacher is a co-constructor of knowledge. That's the most important aspect of a flipped classroom and a blended classroom. Friends, remember, a blended learning is not flipped learning. Flipped learning is blended learning, but blended learning is not only flipped learning. Blended learning is not online learning, but online learning is essentially a part of the blended learning. The blended learning, how to blend learning, when you come across the aspects, you will find that academic content, art, music, theater, life skills, social skills, EI, co-scholastic activities, everything has got to be. And that's what the new policy talks about. It talks about interdisciplinary construction of knowledge. Construction of knowledge will happen only when you go, the ability of the child to go beyond. You very often used to ask them, why not integrate maths with music, maths with dance, maths with graphics? Why not? Right? And that's a real integration. That's a real blend. I want to give a bit of caution here, friends. Many people use the term hybrid learning along with blended learning, right? Now, if you ask me, what is the thin line of difference between hybrid learning and blended learning? Hybrid learning is that, when you provide a different source of resources and leave it to the child, you choose whatever you want, you can do it, right? Right? In blended learning, as I said, blending of the content, blending of the concepts, blending of the emotions, blending. So in other words, a teacher does an effective job of, if you are a science student, you will understand the difference very easily. In 6th class, we used to give a difference between elements, compounds, and mixtures. We used to say mixture is something where all the elements are there, but you can separate them very easily. Compound is something where the same elements combine together, but then they have want a new product. So blended learning is a kind of a synthetic product of all the inputs put together, whereas hybrid learning is letting things loose and happening out there. So friends, there are 12 different models of blended learning. I'm not going to do that because you will get a little upset with that. What I'm trying to say is that once you understand the basic problems, it's okay. But then just for namesake, try to understand the names: station rotation blended learning, lab rotation blended learning, remote blended learning, flux blended learning. You'll find the flipped classroom blended learning, individual rotation blended learning, project-based blended learning, self-directed blended learning, and then you find inside out, outside in, supplemental, mastery based. All these terms are from different countries and different contexts. By the way, they can, depending on their socio-geopolitical requirements, their economic requirements, their commercial requirements, they have put all that into different modules. Just don't worry about them. All that you need is your ability to put all of them together, and don't fight with these tools over there. So friends, what is the role of the teacher in blended learning? Have you developed a psychological climate for learning? That's a very, very important, right? Because when you come to blended learning, you have got to prepare your children also for that kind of a blended learning. If there's going to be a mismatch between what you deliver and what they receive, you will have a problem. So you will have to educate not only your children, but also your parent. I find that there's going to be a lot of resistance from the parent side rather than the teachers, the children's side, because parents are also habituated to the kind of unilayer learning, unipolar learning. We have all learned that way. We also have seen our children learning that way. So any change will always be restricted. Schools need to have a training program, exposure program for parents to educate them on that. So second is preparation of content. Is it gravitating? Third is, do you have strategies both for personal engagement and group engagement? Now, that's a very important thing. In a blended thing, you will have to deal with children both independently and collectively. So when you have your meetings of your subject committees, you say what are the concepts which can be held by groups, what are the concepts which can be done by individuals. Therefore, articulate your delivery models in order to fit the groups as well as the students. So facilitating participatory and collaborative engagement that you need to do, right? I'm not going to do about these 4 models over there, right? And what is the advantage of the blended learning is that the four-way traffic is happening. Facilitator, that's a teacher, to the learner, learner to facilitator, communication, learner to learner, that's a third peer for communication, then facilitator to all stakeholders, right? So the 4-way route of blended learning has to be taken. Your job doesn't end simply preparing a blended learning platform, but to create an acceptable atmosphere for the blended learning platform. As you see in Bloom's taxonomy, the first 2 levels, namely remembering and understanding, is more for the children. But when it comes to applying analysis and evaluating and creating, you will find it is a co-construction of process. The teacher and the learner, the parent and the learner, and the peer learners together all get engaged. But I still have a question. I believe that Bloom's taxonomy is increasingly getting outdated with new models coming through. Probably we will have to go into newer models which also support the idea of metacognition. That's going to be the future, right? So friends, what kind of the skills the teachers will need? They need to encourage group discussions, debates, conversations, brainstorming, problem solving. I've already said that, right? So classrooms, especially primary classes, is a very important thing. Questions are being raised to me, raised to me by teachers that Some teachers call me up, sir, my principal in UKG wants me to use, computers. I don't know. I'm going to resign and do that. I say you can't run away. If you run away from this school in another school, also you'll have to do the same thing, right? Even if you are going to sit at home and do a tuition, you'll have to do the same thing. Don't run away from technology. You will have to go become a continuous learner, right? Friends, just remember one thing. When I see virtual reality being used in a remote village of Tamil Nadu, where the teacher of UKG class is bringing an elephant and a tiger and a circus inside the classroom, and is also bringing a solar system and explaining through augmented reality, I'm surprised how deep it's going to be technology. Remember, in the technology world, there is a huge difference of the world learning community. 30 years before, the teacher learned and explained to the children. It was a cascade effect, right? I learned and I transferred. Today, I am also learning. The child is also learning. Probably I will have to learn from my child, right? That is easier for me. So the question is, we talk about what do you call the learning communities as a parallel learning process. Children are not going to wait for your learning, ladies and gentlemen. So teachers will use role plays, mono acting, theater, and all that, especially for primary classes. You have got to move ahead of with more active methods, right? So the focus is that how are you going to sustain the learning process of the children, is that because one major question many principals have raised to me is that, sir, in a regular classroom, there is an emotional connect between the teacher and the child. Now, in this particular classroom, the emotional connect between the teacher and the child is not there. What should I do? I beg to differ. That's where all the kind of resources that you have got to develop, which connect you emotionally. Socio-emotional connects have got to be done with that. So friends, in blended learning, your job is to create a fire in the belly of the child so that the child becomes passionate to learn. And that's the difficult job the teacher would do. The 5 important things of blended learning which has to happen: allow the child to reflect on the content, analyze the content, research the content, experience the content, and engage in creativity. These are the 5 paradigms of the blended learning. Therefore, blended learning is shifting the paradigm from the rote learning to that, right? To facilitate the blended learning, I am now going to give you what are the advantages of the blended learning process. 1, it focuses on the learnability. It facilitates, expands the learning opportunities for the children. It provokes curiosity at the different levels. It identifies a limitlessness of learning resources. It also moves towards metacognition, right? So, I'll take 5 more minutes to stop my presentation. Now, this is the most important thing for my teachers to know. What are the different resource inputs you would need for the teachers? 1, you cannot move away from your textbook. Can you do it with the textbook? No, right? So your foundation, whether it's a classroom learning or whether it's a blended learning, the foundation is textbook. So any package delivered to you from any publisher or any source that you get, textbook is an accompaniment. So don't ever think that textbook can be ruled out. That is like a runway for the aircraft to take off, right? So you need textbooks as a reference. The second is the e-content. What is the e-content? That what a teacher prepares and delivers during an online class and a digital class, that is the e-content the teacher provides, right? So you have a print content, you have got a e-content which is available, number 2. Number 3 is what is called e-workbooks and e-laboratory. It's a very, very important thing. Remember that because you are going to be on a digital mode, and then anytime, anywhere learning, you can transfer a lot of learning work experiences to worksheets to be done online. As a matter of fact, your National Policy of Education talks about virtual laboratories, right? I wrote about virtual laboratories in 1998 in my first book called Mindscaping Education. I said that in the days to come, you will have virtual laboratories. I'm very happy it's happening today. Now, a number of your experiments can be done virtually on that. And I think the EdTech industry is going to come very heavily with virtual laboratories today to have these experiences done. And therefore, the school's teacher should also think of transferring experiences online, and therefore virtual laboratories there. Then this is another very important thing, pre-recorded lessons. I want to share another experience of mine with you. I'm going back to 1977 when I was a principal. In those days we did not have videos. Therefore, I called all my teachers of 9th and 12th, 9 to 12 classes, got their lessons recorded on audio at 3 different levels. A child who has not attended the class previously can go and take one video and audio and do it. A child who has attended but couldn't understand, he takes level 2 video audio and learns it. A child who is understood but he wants to go further on learning on that, level 3. So I had about 1200 audio tapes available in my, I'm talking about 77, nearly 50 years before. So friends, the question is, now every school should have a library of pre-recorded lessons so that the child is able to access. So you've got 3 resources now: textbook 1, e-content the 2nd, and the 3rd is pre-recorded lessons. And then you also have e-laboratories being done. And one particular child may say, well, I don't know, I want all these things, I can understand everything, but I wanted to see some relevant visuals only. Therefore, I want only visual. So the school's library should have a visual library, which is a complete resource of the visuals. Especially for primary classes, this will go a long way to have, to access visual resources as many times as possible and to reinforce learning. So that is the 5th part of it. Then web resources. Every teacher should have a list of web resources. For example, if you want me to teach the concept of YAR in class 3 and 4, I can list out 100 different web inputs for that, and at least I can provide 10 web inputs for my children so that they can go and see. When I see my grandson at the age of 6 in US telling me 100 web resources for one science topic, I'm surprised. The question is, that's the way the world is moving. That's exactly where accessing knowledge, synthesizing knowledge takes place. So teachers should be ready to educate themselves first on where lies these resources. Then comes a self-learning library, right? The concept of libraries of yesterday is absolutely gone. Today, you won't need that large space. You won't need all those books on the shelves because, they are not being used 99%. So it will be a great idea if you go for an online libraries. And, I could give you at least about 50,000 books which are available free of cost for the children, right from class 1 onwards. And you can have a library provided online to the children of each class as a facilitation from the school, right? So if you provide 20 books to a child of class 4 or 5, and in the course of the year, the child is able to give all the 20 books, maybe one is from literature, one is from science, well, you can do that. So the idea of laboratory, the reading habits can be promoted, not necessarily through a physical library, but through an online library. That's a transformation that's happening around. So you can have a class library, you can have a school library, right? Then comes project work. When you talk of project work, it can be an individual project work. It can also be a group project work. It can be within the class. It can be inter-class, or it can be inter-school. Thereby, as I said, social construction of knowledge takes place. That is the capacity of the future. Team working, so experiential learning resources, a number of experiential learning resources can be provided online, but to the child to go out of the house and then learn the experience. A number of inputs are available on the online about this. Integration of art. Remember one thing, CBSE has already told you about art integration. Remember, art doesn't mean painting, drawing. Art doesn't mean graphics. Art means much more. Art is a state of mind. Art is a status of approach to a concept. Art is a sense of appreciation. So you can appreciate mathematics, you can appreciate economics. So integrating art in every single subject is all that matters. So therefore, the teachers of mathematics, sciences, history should see how effectively they can integrate art into the classes. So for music and theater, especially for the primary classes, the way you can learn mathematics through music, right? And history through theater, I think that's a way you do. Talking about somebody, when I was doing a webinar on blended learning, some physical education teacher asked me a question. Sir, we don't have anything to do with digital online. I said, I'm sorry. A lot of, I have learned a lot of cricket only through the TV, right? So a number of games can be learned through that. Your gym models can be worked from that. Yoga can be practiced through that. Meditation can be practiced through that. Nutrient aspects can be taken through that. So to say that physical education and health education have no role to play digital or blended learning, I disagree. There are huge opportunities for that. So friends, digital learning opens up learning from individual consciousness to the social consciousness, right? And last but not the least, you will find current trends that a separate portal each school should have to expose the children to the topics that they deal in the respective class, to the current trends that's what's happening around. You can post on every day what is the status of corona, what is the kind of medicines that are being prepared. So a number of how the Mars rover has landed. So a lot of current inputs can be updated continuously for the learning of the children. So finally, now as I said, the blended learning, all the three data driven. Now, why I say is this assessment is not only for the teacher, but there are platforms by which a teacher performance can also be evaluated. One of the greatest challenges for the teachers in blended learning, right? I want to caution, you will be evaluated not by your principal, not by your heads of departments. You'll be evaluated by your children. You'll be evaluated by your parents because your transparency is more. I have seen cases where parents are sitting on the digital classroom at the back and saying, coming back to the principal next day, ma'am, your teacher called my son a stupid online, right? That's bad, right? And, commenting about the way that teachers were being informal while teaching. I think there are a number of the exposure issues are coming. So the accountability of the teacher, the verbal communication of the teacher, the physical profile of the teacher, the body language of the teacher, all that comes to a visual display, and therefore the teachers need to be ready for that, right? I will not take on that. So in summary, blended learning gives you opportunities for what do you call? Freedom of time and space for learning, choice of learning-based strategy, choice of learning tools, integrated learning, multi-layer learning, experiential learning, sustaining the joy of learning. The National Policy on Education has talked about three important aspects of digital. It promotes digital literacy. It promotes, blended learning. It promotes virtual and reality and augmented intelligence. Therefore, in future, with artificial intelligence and augmented reality getting integrated to blended classrooms, the universe of learning is going to explode. My only advice or I won't call it an advice, suggestion for teachers, get set and go. You have no other options. Thank you for a very patient listening.
The best mentors are those who push you to your limits and challenge you to achieve things that you never thought were possible. Thank you, sir, for devoting your precious time. It was indeed a wonderful and enrichment session for us. Dear teachers, the platform is now open for you. Kindly post your queries in the chat box through Zoom platform or through live chat on YouTube. I request the teachers to post your queries to the guests through the chat box.
Or somebody can ask the questions.
Yeah, dear friends, if you want to ask directly the question to Bala sir, what you have to do is just a message in the chat box. Accordingly, the host will unmute your microphone. Accordingly, you can ask as well. If you want to directly ask questions, do like this. Otherwise, just message it in the chat box. And this is a beautiful occasion that you have to ask. It is not a session which is just to simply, a wind up with a general motivation or something. This is a session which we presented in front of you through Bala sir. It's about the blended learning, and that is the need of the hour. Please don't forget that. So the head of the departments, please take the lead. Assistant head of the departments, take the lead. Academic supervisors, take the lead and ask questions, and to make the session, the interactive sessions, more fruitful. Generally, while asking questions, definitely we can think that, or we can believe that you are in the right mode for enhancing blended learning in the coming days. So, dear teachers, dear friends, please do it for the development of our children, because we have to accept it firstly with mentally, accordingly to it. Okay, over to you.
Hey, there's a question here. There is a question. How do you manage students who are unmotivated or off task? Well, this is entirely a different scenario. As I said, how do I gravitate children is all that is very important. Motivation is happens only when that the receiver finds a purpose in or an objective in what he is receiving. Therefore, if you find very selective children, you need to call them for a counseling, interact with them, and try to find out from them why they are not, gravitated. Probably either there is a problem with the content delivery, or they are, there are other reasons. You need a lot of counseling on that. But I'm sure this is a problem which can be really addressed too. There are some children who are, more kinesthetic than visual and auditory. Normally, if in a blended classroom, kinesthetic students are less attentive as compared to visual and auditory students, because the kinesthetic students cannot sit in one place. So you'll have to find out which category of students these belong to, and accordingly you'll have to, position your teaching. There's another question: how do you evaluate yourself in the context of blended learning? How do I trace the trajectory of my progress? That's a fantastic question. Right. So to me, every blended class is an experience. Every digital class is an experience. That, for example, I might have done my blended learning deliveries nearly 50 times. But before I come to you, I ask a question to myself, right? How do I improve myself compared to the last class? What are the challenges that I had in the last class? What are the nature of clientele whom I'm going to address? Because the clientele I'm addressing now for Kuwait is not the same as what I do in Chennai or Assam over here. And therefore, there are a number of agencies who have come on digital assessment of the profile of the teacher, performance of the teacher, integrated into the blended classroom models that they are delivering. I am aware of at least 3-4 models which are on the market. Therefore, you also can opt for digital support systems which include this kind of a model, which are very good, which give a teacher's profile. There. That's an answer that I would give. How can we involve parents too in helping kids in learning better in this primary level? I think that's a very, very interesting question. See, without parental support, you cannot really achieve excellent results in blended learning. And therefore, what is more important is before you start the blended learning, or at least periodically once in 3 months or 4 months, you need to have a personal interaction with groups of parents and try to explain them to your strategies and get them involved on that. One constraint the parents might have is that they may say, I don't have time and all that. But I think increasingly, I could see in India, parents trying to get concerned about what's happening in the blended learning. And I think this is possible to do, but you'll have to rework your strategies, right? Please suggest some blended learning that can be applied exclusively for the primary level. Well, I don't think everything can be applied to the primary level, but then, music, drama, theater, art integration, right? And comics, gamification, right? Gamification is an excellent mode. Don't ever think that games don't provide knowledge over there. So and peer interaction, involving them together. I can give you 100 things. I'm just talking to you offhand. As a matter of fact, blended learning, to engage the children of blended learning, primary classes through blended learning is an excellent opportunity. You probably, if you send me a mail, I'll give you some of the inputs which I have designed and send it across to you. But huge opportunities are there, not one, but many, many, right? Can you please suggest how can, what is this question? How can you make the class more interactive for kindergarten? Making classes for interactive for the kindergarten, it is a what do you call exclusive competency of a teacher, engaging with the children, right? Asking them questions, demanding. And that's why I said when you have a parental interaction, tell them that they should advise their children to interact right or wrong. Don't ever say you are wrong. Don't ever say that you are not ready. Don't ever put a negative statement over that. Children who are rejected, classified, demotivated do not participate. So the teacher's ability to gravitate them through positive orientation is all that what you have to do to make them interactive. Accept them as they are, right? Don't try to be judgmental. And know how to use blended learning in practicals, and also let to know how to conduct practicals on. Well, my dear friend, I wouldn't ask you to press the panic button in terms of practicals right now. Hold on for some time. Right now, don't venture on practicals on the blended. You wait for at least 5-6 months over there. Neither the technology industry nor the system is ready for integrating practicals on virtual mode as is available in foreign countries, which over there. But nevertheless, a lot of concepts of physics, a lot of concepts of environment can be related. For example, to give you off record, if I want to teach about pressure temperature law, I will say, find out from your kitchen which are the concepts. Where are the occasions where pressure temperature law is used? So the child may come with an answer that you have it in pressure cooker, and another child may say that during the summer the cycle tire burst. So there may be 100 things over there. Right? You wanted to talk about Newton's third law, ask them. So laboratory doesn't mean that you have to work. Laboratory really means a conceptual obligation that you have. But for example, I foresee a dissection of a frog, understanding of the biology of a human system. All these things can be biologically done, but we are right now in the process. I'll give another example which I have recently witnessed. There was an occasion where for class 11, the generator, the inverter, for example, right? Through virtual reality, an inverter model was available on the table of every child, and the child could see how the AC is moving and converted into DC, how the electrons are moving through. Now with this model on the screen, the teacher asked number of questions: what happens here, what happens over there? So you have a real 3D view of an inverter on the table of every child that's happening around. A solar system on the table of every child. So they're all knocking at your door, but be patient for some time, right?
So we have one more question.
Yeah, that's a question. While teaching symbols, valency, and chemicals, formula, students face difficulty in learning, especially in virtual classes. Being a chemistry teacher, I think I don't find any difficulty. Symbols are something which can be easily translated. What all that you have to do is, you have to change the model into a gamification model, or what do you call a dynamic model, right? Now, if you are just going to say carbon has a valency 4, and just indicate C and 4 on the screen. Even I will not be motivated over there. Now, how do I represent it over there, right? So how do I bring the concept of the 2 valency of carbon and the 4 valency of carbon, right? And how do I make symbols, for example, from the ancient symbol to the modern symbols? Yeah, a number of gamification methods are available. If you go into the Google and search it out, you will find at least a dozen models of teaching valency and this one. Please do some search work with your Google, right? And I'm sure you will get it. I mean, I appreciate chemistry teachers, being a chemistry teacher myself, for example, when you talk about the tetravalency of carbon and how do you talk about what is called the sp1, sp2, sp3, orbital transfers and all that, it's a very difficult challenge, right? But I mean, I'm able to see models available at this point of time, a lot of visual models available, right? So probably you have to do a lot of research on your web resources, right? Online tool that can be used by the teacher during, you can suggest some online tools that can be used by teacher during online class. Every online tool can be used. It all depends on the technology that you are doing. Yeah, visual, as I told you, you want to take a child to a, tour of a Louvre museum. You want to take the child to that. That's also an online explanation, right? You want to, for example, you are teaching a scene from Shakespeare. You have got all kinds of, theaters available free of cost on the web. You can import some of them and then show a few scenes from that. So a teacher has got to prepare himself or herself. Your investment of time and preparation is more important than, so every question that you are giving has an answer. But the question basically is that you are prepared. That's why I said you are not going to have blended learning tomorrow morning, right? All that you are doing is a digital learning and then continue to do so. But remember, you are going to take 1 year plus on moving from digital learning to online learning, because you have to go in search and construct your knowledge platform very well, right? Are many students not combination of visual, auditory, kinesthetic? How can they be classified as one group? See, the basic point is that visual, auditory, kinesthetic or other models, they are latent in every child, right? We use all of them. If you ask me, I'm visual, auditory and kinesthetic, but something or the other predominates, number one. Second, depending on the context, something else also predominates, right? So my only question is, you are not going to select something for visual, something for auditory. No, your job is to give a buffet approach. Your job is to create a training, a class module which encompasses everything. You cannot say this is going to feed this child, this is going to feed this child. No, not at all. Your job is to create as well. That's what, like a good chef, you create 200 different varieties of dishes. It's left to the children to pick up what they want. You don't go and search what the way child learns. No, that's not your job. My only question is, you provide as many resources as possible and the child will automatically pick up what he wants, right? Leave it there. Don't go and try to negotiate with what every child is. You will not neither have time nor resources to do that. Within what resources available, create a variety of learning experiences. That's it. To make the whole class interactive line, we are having a time limitation in the class. No, there is no question of whole class being interactive. Don't ever try to do that, right? It's not possible. The question basically is that if you have 40 children, that if you are able to successfully engage 15 children in a particular period of 40 minutes, you have done the job, right? And if you think that all 40 children will take every minute, they never do that. That's not possible. You understand? So the question is that you say 2 or 3 groups of children today, 2 or 3 groups of children tomorrow. In other words, continuous engagement of children is very important. Don't ever have only this group will answer today, only that group will answer today. See that over a period of time, everybody gets engaged. Yeah, Don't ever think of engaging in the entire class for entire period of time. Sorry, that's not expected of a teacher, nor is it possible. Okay? How can we have different modules depending on the learning capabilities in a classroom, having all types of kids? Won't parents feel that the kid is being treated differently? Friends, I think you have mistaken the whole thing. I am not saying that you pick up a child and deliver this model to him. Certainly parents will say, why this model, why not that model? What I told you was integrate different types of resources in your learning basket and let the child pick up what model he wants, right? Don't ever thrust a particular model on a given child, because you may not be even right in assessing that this is what he wants. So don't do that. What I'm trying to say is, as a good teacher, you create, you integrate a variety of resources into the blending. So, same concept can be explained by 3 ways, 4 ways. You would have seen during my presentation, every single concept, I use 3 or 4 words to explain them, in order that everybody, one can pick up one particular paraphrase and then do that. So you create different ways of explaining the child. Don't say this child will learn this way, that way. Don't ever do that. My job, right, to create a variety, right? And that's, you leave that, every child will pick up the way he wants, right? Or she wants. Right? How can we have different modules of that? Right.
Teachers, if you have any queries more, please send it in the chat box.
Good. I think they are full.
Austin, sir, if you have any queries in the YouTube chat box, please.
No, ma'am. From YouTube, no questions, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, sir, for clarifying the doubts we had and for great answers. Thank you so much. Gratitude is the completion of thankfulness. As the token of respect and gratitude from the ICSK fraternity, we would like to present a virtual token of appreciation to our guest speaker, Dr. G. Balasubramanian. I would like to invite Mr. Sheikh Abdul Rahman, Honorary Chairman to the Board of Trustees, to do the honors and also to speak a few words.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good morning, Dr. Binamon, our principal, Mr. Gangadhar, our vice principals, all the teachers who were present here, and especially our guest, Dr. G. Balasubramanian. Sir, I was last 20 minutes. I was hearing your, your teaching, the question and answer session, and it's a new experience for me personally. It has been in this time, we are getting, there is a challenge thrown at us in the form of a pandemic. For the last 6 months, the world order has changed, and every industry is trying its best to cope up with, coming up with alternative solutions. And I am very proud to say that our school in March itself, they have come back and adapted ourselves into e-learning. And from that time, our teachers, our principals, our staff, we are trying to really catch up with this and coming up with innovative ways each time. And I am very thankful for our leadership in the school as well as our teachers for really making this happen. And we can say we are doing one of the best job in the country in this Gulf. And especially I'm thankful for the teacher, for the guests like you who are coming and giving us, opening our vision, our thoughts. Thank you, Mr. Balasubramanian, sir. And really, it has been a very pleasure understand this about this online. It's all about, the most important thing, what I always feel, it's about the intent of a person, whether how he has to perform and a common sense. This is the combination of an intent and common sense. can make anything, any person can do anything possible. There's nothing impossible in the world. So as you rightly said, preparation for that class is an important, and I thought now there is a wealth of information is available online. So how do we gather the information and then transforms to the child? That is where the whole lies, the specialty lies with the teacher. And I'm sure, with such a track record of our teachers, they will excel as they have been in this during these years. And I really thankful to all of you, all the teachers and everyone. And we are going to start the second innings from August 23rd. And I wish them all of the luck. And we are there as a board anytime to support them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. The best and beautiful things in the world cannot be seen or even touched. They must be felt by heart. Thank you is one such prayer among them. I would like to invite Mrs. Shirley Dennis, Principal, ICSK Junior, to propose the vote of thanks.
Good morning, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Respected guest speaker, Balasubramaniam sir, Chairman to the Board of Trustees, Mr. Sheikh Abdul Rahman, Dr. V. Binumon, other principals, Mr. Gangadhar Shishad and Mr. Rajesh Nair, our vice principals, deputy vice principals. A very good morning to everyone. This is the third time I'm attending Bala sir's training program. In this vacation I was fortunate to attend his webinar on art of questioning. And very good way of presenting, and we have become a real fan of you, dear sir, and would like to get into more training programs like this. And when we were talking about this blended learning, as chairman has said that we are already very proud to say that ICSK teachers, the backbone of ICSK, these teachers have taken a lot of efforts to bring us to a next level at this time of pandemic situation. And at this moment, this blended learning, this topic is very thought-provoking, and then I think added to the icing to our cake, which is already prepared. And we have seen that in the midst of chaos lies creativity, and we have realized from 2 months of our classes during the month of April and May. And we know that the teachers learned a lot of creativity, and they discovered themselves. Discovering ourselves in the midst of crisis is an important aspect which we learn, and that is what we learned, our staff, ICSK, all the members, under the able guidance of our management. And we are very, very, very happy to say that with the strong support of the management, we are doing a wonderful job. And each one of us discovered ourselves in a different way, more positive way. And we always believe in that. The word impossibility is a word of the dictionary, in the dictionary of the fools, and we believe that, and we try to make it possible for every opportunity we get, and we try to find an opportunity in every challenges. And on this occasion, it's my proud privilege to give our most humble gratitude towards Bala sir. And you created a very big vibe when you came to our school, physically present, and with your teacher in a platform. We are fortunate to attend your webinars. And again, as ICSK is honored to have your presence again today for this webinar. Thank you so much on behalf of ICSK management, staff, and the students, because definitely this will help the students to have a better learning after this session. After the arrival of this new management, and we are very, very lucky to have a good team of management under the able leadership of our honorary chairman, Mr. Sheikh Abdul Rahman, Our Secretary, Mr. Mohammad Amir, Vice Chairman, Mr. Vinu Kumar Nair, Joint Secretary, Mr. Agnello Fernandez, and the Treasurer, Mr. S. Raju. On behalf of everyone present over here and all the staff of and students and parents of ICSK, a big thank you to all these board members and the management. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
And the person, Dr. V. Binamon, who make things, who teaches us that there is no, really this word impossibility is a word in the dictionary of fools. Thank you so much, sir. Even in the midst of this pandemic situation, learning is possible to online and taking the initiative to train the teachers on this situation. And I remember the principals, Mr. Gangadhar Shirshad and Mr. Rajesh Nair, along with all the vice principals and deputy vice principals. Thank you so much for the support and helping us. We are running as a team in order to reach our destination of e-learning, which is making more effective in the coming session starting from 23rd of August. Learning without thinking is useless and thinking without learning is dangerous. Thank you so much, sir, for making us to understand. Our teachers are going to understand this. Learning without thinking is useless and thinking without learning is dangerous. And our children will learn with more clarity after this session and the teachers are more equipped for that. Thank you so much for all the teachers, all the staff members for taking your time and getting into this training program to enhance yourself and empower yourself and discover yourself. Thank you so much. And again, we thank all the IT staff members who make all this online teaching, online learning possible for us. And once again, thank you. Thanks everyone, and especially to Bala sir and all the members who are present over here. Thank you. God bless you.